As of a few days ago, it's been exactly 15 years since the release of the first ever episode of the BFDI series, Take the Plunge. It was pretty much the definition of humble beginnings, with only 2 people working on the show for a full 2 years. And since then, the show has only gotten bigger and bigger to the point where it's not rare at all to see a random BFDI character in one of your math classes, and I'm not joking with that statement. And while all this is incredible for the community, I feel like we've sort of lost track of where we started out a decade and a half ago. What I mean by this is that almost all of the modern discussion about object shows are about Teapot and Animated Insanity 2, Animatic Battle, and some other lesser known shows. But it's incredibly rare to see someone even mentioning the first season of BFDI, and I kind of want to change that here. Because after watching the first season for a bit, I've basically come to the conclusion that this is actually peak. Sure, you may be thinking to yourself, Andy, the first season of BFDI may have its charm and make you feel nostalgic, but how does it make it better in the slightest? And to that I say, shut up. Because there's a lot more than the first season than charm and nostalgia, and if you let me take a tiny portion of your day to let me explain why, I'd be more than happy to. And if you end up liking this video, then please subscribe, because if I somehow manage to hit 10k subs by the end of the year, I will do an eye reveal. Shocker, right? From my capybara profile picture to this, it's quite the banger deal. And let's get going with the video now. Now, I'll be honest, this video isn't going to be very organized, or at the very least, less organized than my other videos. But I think we can all agree that if we're going to talk about BFDI's first season, a great place to start would be its very first episode, or well, the first 2 parts. At first, you might think it's nothing that special, but in my opinion, it's a great way to start the series off for a multitude of reasons. To start, it does a surprisingly good job at getting you familiar with most of the characters, dynamics, and it introduces how the show will work. If you're watching this for the first time, by the end of it, you can understand that Match, Pencil, and Bubble have a unique bond with each other, Woody being terrified of anything to Miphone's cookies to my crippling gambling addiction, and more stuff that I don't feel like naming, which, well, it's everything, of course it is. And if you end up being interested in the series at all, then watching the second part not only continues off exactly where it left off, but it also introduces how the rest of the series will play out. And, wait, that's already it? Huh. Okay, but in all seriousness, I think it's time to get talking about the rest of the season, rather than just the first episode. And if we're going to be honest here, it doesn't disappoint. Throughout the first episode to the very last, you can notice lots of really subtle but very nice improvements to the show. From the new limbs in BFDIA, the voices not sounding like it came from Alvin and the Chipmunks, and the fact that pretty much all of the BFDI episodes are super enjoyable to watch from there on due to their interesting sense of humor. But who cares about that when you have to talk about the animation? I'll be honest, even though it's nowhere near the animation we have right now with Teapot, especially after the release of BFDIA 17 and Teapot 15, considering the fact that it was made during 2010 and 2012 by 2 literal teenagers, this was a shit back then, holy fuck. Of course, it's nothing special nowadays, but dude, when this was being made, the rest of the object community was still figuring out what software to use to animate, and BFDI was already doing stuff like this. And no, even when BFDI was about to end, Animated Insanity still looked like this, which is pretty much only comparable to the first few episodes of BFDI. And even that's something to be proud of, because at the time, Objects at War was considered to be a semi-revolutionary object show in 2013, and it looked like this.
You think just because I'm a remote, I can't be any blackish color? Well, you are mean, and that's pretty offensive.
Okay, I think I'm getting a bit off track here, but my point still stands. BFDI was years ahead of its time by its animation, or well, for OSC standards at the very least. And there's no denying that, and not to mention that the season was made monthly for 2 years while balancing that with school most of the time. Like, dude, you were getting less than 100 votes for half the season, and both of them were like, yep, this is worth spending almost all of our free time on. Like, seriously, why does no one talk about that, like, ever? That's insanely underrated, man. They had 38 subscribers when the first episode came out, and I'm willing to bet they probably didn't get paid a nickel while they were making the show. But safe to say that it paid off in the end, because holy fuck. And there's also the voice acting, because even though we had Adam and the Chipmunks voice acting the first few episodes, from there it really started to pop off. Some characters like Match, Pin, Snowball, Spongy, and more are near perfect representations of their personalities. And yeah, that might be slightly exaggerated, but for two adolescent teenagers entering puberty, it's about as good as it gets. But alas, I think we need to discuss the main reason on why I think the first season of BFDI was so good. Because sure, we could talk about the introduction, animation, voice acting, but there's one thing that I feel like keeps all my points alive. The fact that BFDI was the first object show ever created. Now you might hear that and think to yourself, how on earth does this affect the season anyway? And it affects it a lot more than you think. To start, it set a very high bar for what would be an object show. What I mean by this is, because of BFDI being the first object show, it defined what an object show actually is. And honestly, it did a really good job at that. Everything in this season feels so straightforward and is easy to understand. From the teams to the points Dude, I'm sorry, I couldn't resist that one. But yeah, besides controversial British man, I think that because of its simplicity and all of the points I mentioned previously, yeah, I feel like because of its simplicity and overall charm, this show did a good job at setting a bar so that others could try to reach it, even if it took a really long time for that to actually happen. Secondly, the execution. Now, I know I said that a million times, but it holds up more because, again, this is the first object show, so this matters a lot more now. And yeah, dude, I love it. I love it here, man. Holy crap. It's such a simple object show. There's no lore, okay? There's no lore, no evil villain that tries to kill everyone in the finale. Okay, I take that back. And it's such a relaxing show to watch. There's not that much going on, but inside you, it kind of feels like it is. It's like the famous quote from some guy. The one thing that gambling has taught me is that you shouldn't give up. Or something like that, I don't know. But now, I feel like it's time to talk about the final reason on what makes BFDI so great. It could be something different for everyone. It's the creators of BFDI themselves, Michael and Carrie. Now, if I'm being real with you here, I feel like the sheer dedication that these two put in this silly little indie show back in 2010 is insane, to the point where even if there were 100 different multiverses, I don't think anyone else would have put that much time in something that had a very little chance of success as much as these two, especially when you're trying to do something that literally no one else has ever done before on YouTube. And we were also blessed with the fact that these two fuckers actually knew what they were doing. Because let's face it, guys, if someone else was getting the dedication that the Huang brothers had, then it could have very easily ended up like Shape World. I'm not kidding with that one. And as a matter of fact, back when the BFDIA 5 marathon was going on, the Huangtons were in some sort of friendly competition with the Animation Epic team, where they had to make better their episodes of their series than the other. And even then, I still think BFDIA won, because like the concept of having a super long challenge that runs out over several episodes is so cool. I loved it when BFDIA did it, and I wish newer shows did something like this too. But in all seriousness now, I feel like the best thing that has ever happened to BFDIA is these two. Because in all honesty, these two are simply the perfect creators of the series. It could have been anyone else, but it was given to these two. And because of these two making a silly little YouTube series for 2 years, they made this community filled with insanely talented and amazing people, including me, of course, and have given so many people the chance to find others with their same interests. And sure, at times we might catch some Drake notes here and there, but at the end of the day, BFDI, or T-Bot in this case, has never been more popular than it is now. The community has never thrived more than it is now. But most of all, thank you, Carrie and Michael, for making such a great show. I don't know where I, or many others in this community, would be doing right now without you both. So, thank you all so much for making this old dream of yours a reality. And I hope things only go up from here. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care.